right. So, Krista Shelton, for the people who haven't met you yet, tell me who you are and a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Sure. My name is Krista Shelton. I'm the president and founder of Focused Forensic Solutions, which is a forensic accounting and fraud investigation firm.
So, now tell me what that means.
There's a big difference between accountants and forensic accountants. And so I always like to kind of explain that. Accountants, their primary function is to record transactions, and then those recorded transactions go into those financial statements. But forensic accounting, we take much more of a detective and like investigative approach. So rather than recording transactions, we're more analyzing transactions and looking for, signs of suspicious activity, looking for fraud and other misconducts. And then we act as detectives to try to piece together those financial puzzles.
And so, I mean, what goes into that? I mean, do you have to kind of switch hats between being the accountant and being the investigator, or is it you got your Sherlock Holmes, your magnifying glass, or
That's Sherlock Holmes of accounting, yes.
yeah.
So forensic, I mean, the term forensic just means suitable for use in a court.
Mhm.
And so every case that we're dealing with, we're always thinking about kind of the end result and, being able to testify, in a court proceeding to be able to explain the issues. And so one of the things that makes us different also is our ability to take really complicated circumstances and complicated facts and then really put it into a story that's compelling and easy to understand.
Okay. And I know you mentioned so the whole point of finding these facts is so they could be used in a court. So I mean that's where a lot of this work ends up being. I know you get a lot of your leads through lawyers and law firms.
Yes.
Are there other places you get leads or other reasons a person would hire you?
Sure. Most of the time, what we're doing we're doing a lot of divorce work,
Okay.
unfortunately, or fortunately, if you look at it that way. But no, we get leads from individuals who are, have concerns about a financial situation. So it could be somebody going through a divorce. It could be a small business owner who, maybe has an idea that somebody's been stealing from them and they're within their company.
Mhm.
But we get a lot of leads from attorneys, but we also, we're trying to get as much social media. We do blog posts and just, try to spread the word
Mhm.
about what we do. So,
And you said one of the primary ways you're doing that is by presenting to bar associations or law firms. And I think one of the presentations you give can even count as continuing education credits. Is that right?
yes, absolutely. And they call it CLE, so continuing legal education.
Okay.
And a lot of that, what I do is kind of do forensic accounting for attorneys. And
Okay.
so I start off with, what forensic accounting is and some of the main documents that we use when we're doing an investigation. But then the biggest thing is giving them an idea of what kind of red flags that they would see, and then how being able to spot those to determine that there is a time that a forensic accountant would be good to bring in.
Okay. So it seems like when we've talked in the past, like your stories fall into three categories, right? So you have the couple's getting divorced and someone's trying to hide assets from the other. You have maybe the small business owner where they hired someone to help run maybe too many aspects of the business. They were getting ripped off, didn't realize it. And then you have like the celebrity that has their foundation or their charity and they're doing scammy, dirty stuff through that, right? Like are those kind
Yes.
of three broad categories or are there more than I'm missing?
Yeah, and when also like trust and estate litigation.
Okay.
So, when somebody inheritance gets passed down, we see a lot of times where allegations of fraud will be thrown out by one party, and this could be like brothers and sisters or cousins that are fighting.
Mhm.
And so in those cases, it's actually interesting because we've done more on the defense side where we're defending somebody against false allegations of fraud. And so that's been another area that we really enjoy just because of our federal experience.
Right. So do you mind talking about that federal experience there for a second? 'Cause it
Sure.
sounds like that's kind of a differentiator of yours.
Well, and I think it is. I come with 13 and a half years at the IRS. I spent the first 3.5 years as a revenue agent where I was doing audits on small businesses.
Mhm.
And then I switched over to the criminal side. So I was a special agent for 10 years with the IRS. And so we worked any kind of case where there was potential criminal violations of the Internal Revenue Code. And then we did other financial related crimes, such as money laundering and violations of the Bank Secrecy Act. And so when I left the government to start this company, I wanted to be able to use all of my skills and all the experience that I had working for the government
Mhm.
to help the people who need it the most, like the victims in these cases. And within the last 5 years is when I started the company, and I have now, kind of ventured out and I'm pulling other retired agents as they retire. So right now we have like over 200 years of FBI and IRS experience on this team, and that is a game changer.
Yeah.
We come with just an enormous amount of experience. We've, all of us have lots of experience testifying, and we all really want to help people, and that I think makes a huge difference too.
And maybe you can correct me, but doesn't, I guess, that division, there's like a forced requirement age, right? So some people are like forced to retire when they still have plenty of years left in the tank, right? So it seems like
Yes,
this is kind of a perfect transition for them.
it is. So federal law enforcement's mandatory retirement at 57,
Hmm.
but most agents are eligible to retire at 50.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so I'm just getting the word out with all the agents, and if you're retired and still want to use your skills, then come join Focus Forensic.
So that works
So,
pretty well for you, right?
yeah. Yeah, it is. And it helps them too. I mean, they're able to use their skills. We're helping the real victims.
Hmm.
That was such a big difference between working for the government and working for Focus Forensic is the victims in our cases, the victim is no longer the government. It's not the IRS with, taxes that are owed. Now it's again, it's real people, it's real victims that we're able to help, and it makes a huge difference in people's lives.
I mean, are you allowed to give any examples? And obviously, you don't have to name any names, but it's just things that people that you've helped.
Sure. One of the cases that I talk about, this is one of the best days of my career, and it was just a couple of years ago. And I was helping a woman going through a divorce. She had been married for 30 plus years, married to a doctor who had his own partnership with another person. They had 4 kids. The oldest son was special needs and required full-time care, and she was a stay-home mom. And she, searched. She was like in her third year of going through a divorce and already spent like $100,000. And she was so determined that there was something weird going on. And she had such a hard time finding somebody. And so she hired us to do the digging into the discovery. And we immediately came across some red flags that we saw. And it was, personal credit cards paid out of a business account, which is a big red flag for us. And then like a couple months later, she gets a call from a friend of hers who is looking for donations of watches. And so she goes up in his old office and digs out these watches. And I guess they're using them for homeless people for job interviews and stuff.
Okay.
And she comes across a list of passwords. So she gets in his email and finds these just damning emails where him and his partner are hiding money that the company owes him. But then we also come across these very detailed emails about the personal expenses. And they had actually been keeping track of the personal expenses because they wanted to make sure each partner was even in their tax fraud. And so
Second
we
set of books, right?
I mean, it is. And so, we didn't get this information until like 2 days before trial. So I met with my client attorney and we went through it and, figured out this grid that he was using. And we ended up showing up at the trial, and I sat down with the opposing attorney and her husband and walked him through the fraud and then showed him these smoking gun emails. And we walked out. And
Hmm.
it was about an hour later that they came back and they offered her another $250,000.
Jeez.
And we also, because of the fraud, we were able to increase his income from like 200,000 to 265,000 a year for child support.
Right.
And so it made a huge difference in her life, like for the rest of her life. And, I just had another one recently where I testified down in Cape Girardeau. And, this was it was a contempt hearing for somebody who was refusing to provide records, and he was a small business owner. And, at the end of that, we were able to show that he's been transferring businesses out of his name into his brother's name. And the judge came back on that, held him in contempt, and actually ordered him to pay our fees.
Oh, that's nice.
So
Hmm.
yeah. So I mean, most of the time the people that we're helping are not the ones that have all the money. A lot of times that they've been emotionally or financially abused and they've been cut off and don't have access to it. And so, again, with us being able to come in and shed some light and then be able to explain it to a trial, to a judge,
Right.
it does. It makes a huge difference, and it's very, very rewarding for us too.
Well, it sounds like it would be. I mean, just that example alone with the woman and the stay at home and all the things. So so obviously that, I mean, that's a life-changing swing in the course of that case, right? And just
Yes.
happened in a couple of days. And you're telling me that there's kind of a misconception around the fees associated with that, right? So kind of the work maybe isn't as expensive as most people would think, or it's a little more accessible to people. I mean, you might.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're trying to do. I'm really trying to disrupt this industry, and make it more approachable. I'm trying to normalize forensic accounting in the divorce process because I think it's so needed. And so what we do, we call this the red flag analysis. And what we do is if somebody has a concern about financial information being shared,
Mm.
we'll take all of the standard discovery documents that are being exchanged, and we're talking about tax returns and bank statements, right? I mean, the bread and butter of what we do. And we will do a deep dive on those documents and look for those signs of suspicious activity. So we're looking for things like unreported income, hidden bank accounts, personal expenses paid from a business. I mean, we're looking for things that are going to make a difference in that divorce case.
Right.
And if we find red flags, then we immediately start developing a plan so that our clients are not only informed, but they're equipped to respond effectively.
Mm.
And we're doing this all for a very approachable flat rate fee. Again, most forensic accountants are high hourly rates, and you don't have a lot of control over the number of hours that are spent. And so by doing a flat rate fee based solely on volume of documents, we're able to really kind of take that away and provide a service that people can afford.
But yeah, it definitely makes it more accessible to the people like you described. This woman doesn't have her own income, so like
Yeah,
she could be easily scared away by kind
right,
of this, I don't know, unknown price tag of this service that may or may not yield
right.
any results. So,
Yeah. And most of the time we do find stuff. I mean, at the end of the day. But I do have one case where we didn't. And it was involving, there was probably 10 bank accounts and lots of transfers going back and forth. And so there was a concern that they didn't have all the account information. And we went through it. We traced like 124 transactions in a year, over $1.2 million. But we lined up every single one of them. There was no red flags. And so I'll never forget this because we did a client presentation and disclosed that. And our client was so mad. I mean, she was angry because she was so convinced that there was something there and there just wasn't.
mm,
And she called me back like 2 weeks later and thanked me because at the end of the day, what we were able to give her is peace of mind.
yeah.
So now she knows that the information that she relied on in her divorce was accurate. So,
Yeah, I mean, I get, like you said, there's got to be something to that, right? At least at least now you know that you didn't leave money on the table, or
right,
maybe there's something to take away that the person was being a little more honest. That's giving them credit for.
right.
And so I guess that brings up the idea that, I mean, I guess whenever you're committing any kind of fraud, it's a little bit of a cat and mouse game. So what are some of the things that people try to do to cover their tracks that you've been able to uncover? What are some of the most creative schemes that
Well,
you've been able
that's
to
the
uncover?
crazy thing is people don't try to hide it. I mean, most of the time it really is just right there, right out there in the open.
Okay.
We there was one case I can talk about where we did find a hidden bank account. And sometimes so in our world, like sometimes it's what you see, but sometimes it's what you don't see. And so in this particular case, we had a personal bank account, but there was no activity in it. And
Mhm.
so you would expect in a personal bank account to have personal expenses, and you
Right.
would expect the wages to go in there. And we weren't able to find that. And so we were able to find the missing account by looking at his paycheck stubs because it actually had two different accounts listed.
Right.
One of them we had, and then the other one we didn't have.
I see.
And believe it or not, he didn't want us to have that account because it was with another woman.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
the old other woman trick. Right? So,
Yes.
I know one story that you told me, I'm kind of switching gears a little bit. Something you told me in the past that surprised me a little bit was, so sometimes you have the business owner that finds out that one of their employees has been embezzling money or committing fraud, and actually choose not to press charges because it's kind of embarrassing, or they for whatever reason. And so then that person just goes to the business across the street and sets up shop and does it all over again. Is that still
Yes.
a pattern that you see?
It is, unfortunately. So anytime we're involved in those cases, we push really hard to, report the activity.
Hmm.
Because again, if it's out there, then somebody could find it. But if it's pushed under the table and nothing ever happens, then that person will absolutely go to the next place.
Hmm.
And, at that point, I do a lot of fraud awareness training, and there's this theory out there called the fraud triangle. Have you ever heard of that?
Hmm.
So the fraud triangle, this was a theory that was developed back in the 1940s by a criminologist named Donald Cressy. And he wanted to understand how and why people committed occupational fraud, like embezzlement. So he went out and interviewed like hundreds of people who had committed embezzlement.
Right.
And what he found is that there's three factors. There's pressure, rationalization, and opportunity. And when all three of those factors are present, that it becomes like a breeding ground for bad behavior.
Hmm.
And so what we find is that the initial theft that somebody does, there's always this outside pressure, and that could be like unforeseen medical bills or going through a divorce or gambling addiction, anything like that. But it's some outside pressure that's causing them to go past that level where they would actually steal, because most people wouldn't do that, right? What's interesting, well, and then the rationalization is all about their mindset. It's their ability to justify in their own head why they're able to do it. But what's the most interesting thing is that once they get away with that initial theft, that's when greed starts taking over.
Right.
And so once somebody starts down that path, it's really hard to pull them back until they actually get caught and something happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's lots of different things that you could do if you're a business owner that finds out that somebody's been embezzling. There's lots of different, mechanisms, and there's, going through insurance or filing civil lawsuits or whatnot. But the most important thing is just to do something.
So I know at one point, I guess so there's two aspects to that, right? So at one point, I think you were working on training or had a course for business owners to identify some of the red flags to look for if they think that one of their employees is embezzling. But then also there's
Mhm.
a list of things to do, like once you're willing to make that accusation or pursue that. So there's kind of the preventive measures, and then the what do you do once you find out it's been happening. So do you
Yeah.
mind walking through what some of those are?
Sure. I mean, we'll talk about the prevention side
Yeah.
first, because the number one way to prevent somebody to steal from you is the perception of detection.
Mhm.
And like one example would be, a bar owner who puts a camera over top the register. The sales will go up.
Okay. Even
The
though
camera doesn't even have to
camera can
work.
yeah.
No, but I mean, people won't steal from you if they think you're looking.
Right.
And so for a small business owner, if you've got one person who is in your books, your bookkeeper or whatnot, and also has access to your bank account, I mean, even once a year, go to them and ask them a question about a specific transaction.
Mhm.
Because again, if they think you're looking at it, they won't steal from you.
Okay.
And the other biggest thing, I mean, the biggest thing is just to do reconciliations. If you're looking inside that bank account and you're looking at your books and records, like people, you would be able to find it. And most of the time, what we find, small business owners, they're really good at what they do, but most of them have never had a business class or an accounting class. And so it's taking that extra step just to learn how to do like a reconciliation.
Mhm.
I mean, that really is the biggest thing is you have to look at the bank statements. And most of the time, most of the cases that we deal with, that would have stopped it.
Okay. So we got the perception that you're being monitored, and then also, doing a little bit of work on your own, right? The
Yeah.
reconciliation. So that's to prevent the fraud from ever happening in the first place.
Yeah.
But then the fraud
Mhm.
takes place, then what should I as a business owner do?
Well, first things first is you want to make sure you're protecting all of your accounts. So if that individual has access to bank accounts, you want to shut that off right away to prevent any further fraud.
Right.
The other thing is insurance. Most insurance policies include a theft loss. And I think most of the time you have to report the initial thought of fraud within a certain amount of days.
Okay.
And so that's another thing to always do right away. And then you can contact, an attorney or a forensic accountant or somebody to go in and try to help you, figure out what exactly happened. And a lot of times what we'll do is, we'll do an investigation. We'll put together a fraud report that will, outline exactly what the loss was and how it was accomplished. But
Mhm.
then also try to teach the small business owners how to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Okay. So
Yeah,
then, walk me through what that process looks like. So how would I get a hold of you? How long does the process take? What can I expect from the beginning to the end of?
sure. So focusforensic.com is our website, so you can always reach out to us on that. We also have you had to ask me about my 1-800 number. I'll have to find it.
Right.
But Focused Forensic, FOCUSED forensic.com. Or you can give us a call. I mean, our website's on there and phone number's on there.
Okay. And then so I give you a call, I tell you what's going on, and then I send you some documents, or what happens
Yes.
from
Yes. It all comes down to the bank accounts at the end of the day. So
there?
we would get copies of those. And, if you have an accounting system, that we would get copies of those reports. And then, it's just a matter of having a conversation where we kind of figure out, how you caught it, what you think is going on, and then we'll focus our area on that and help determine what happened and how it happened.
So then, it sounds like there's a couple different buckets for like who your ideal either client is or partner or referral relationship, whatever. So, on the one, obviously the business side, right? So it's business owners, you see a particular size of business, particular industry, certain characteristics that you like.
I mean, honestly, it's probably the smaller businesses. They have they're not able to have the internal controls like a big company would. So they end up being victims, I think, more than anybody else. So definitely the small business owners. As far as, any attorney, if they've got cases that involve financial disputes, then we can get involved in that and help.
Okay. And then you mentioned you joined, there are like Facebook groups out there. Like you said, there's like divorce support groups out there. And so that's another one where if someone's going through a divorce, maybe there's some fraud taking place. So that'd be another way to find some leads.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Are there others? I wonder if, so the way that there's a divorce support group, is there a, I'm a business owner that got ripped off by an employee support group?
Yeah, I'm not
Um,
aware of one, but there
no,
probably should be.
makes sense.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of divorce groups out there. I mean, it's this industry is I never would have had any idea what was involved in this industry until getting into it, and it honestly it's scary. There's so much financial manipulation that happens in these cases,
Mm,
and I'm not seeing a lot of consequences. So even if somebody gets caught and has to pay the right amount, there's not many penalties. There's no, even having to pay attorney's fees doesn't happen all that often.
really.
And so until we start having those consequences, then people are going to still continue to do it.
Mm. So, I mean, does that kind of, I can imagine that'd be frustrating, right? Does that kind of get to like the, I don't know, the why or the driving force behind what you do?
It does. I mean, again, it's we're able to use this experience that we have that nobody else has, which is being taught by the federal government, by the Internal Revenue Service. And we're able to use that to help the real people, and we make such a huge difference in people's lives. These child support cases, we do the income adjustments so much on those because if you've got children, if we're your child support's based on an income,
Right.
and that could be 10 years. 10 years of child support. So we adjust income to make it more accurate, and that can have a huge, huge impact on somebody's case.
And I mean, it sounds like that's not the only way you're impacting lives. So I saw there's Let Us Dream, right? And then what,
Yes.
the Second Harvest Community Food Bank. So these are, tell me a little bit about what those are.
Sure. So Let Us Dream is an organization that's based out of Maryville, Missouri.
Mhm.
And we have a greenhouse, so we do sell and actually grow lettuce. But the majority of what we do is we offer job training and coaching for individuals with disabilities, and then help place them into employment opportunities in the surrounding area.
That's cool.
And yeah, I've been involved in that maybe a year and a half by now.
Yeah,
And just yeah, just an absolutely wonderful organization. Very, very happy to be a part of that.
cool.
And then I just joined Second Harvest Community Food Bank, which is, it's a food bank that serves Northwest Missouri and I think part of Kansas too.
Okay. And it seems like, both of those seem to be at least agriculture adjacent. You have a farm, right? So, or
I
you have a
do.
family?
I live on a
Yeah.
farm.
Mhm.
I'm still learning all the actual farming activities, but yeah. So I moved to Maryville. It's been 4 years now.
Mhm.
Built my dream house on a family farm. So I live on 400 acres, and I when I first moved up here, I bought like every single book you can imagine on all farming activities and
Yeah.
like gardening and all the animals, chickens and goats and cows and even beekeeping. So right now I'm working too much, but eventually my hope is to spread out and start doing some farming activities too.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So I'm trying to, I mean, we talked about the nonprofit stuff. We talked about the work stuff. Is there anything new or interesting that I haven't asked about that you want to share?
Well, I do have a new book. I'm in the process of writing a book.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a book on the criminal investigation of Kermit Washington, who he's infamous from the NBA for punching Rudy Tomjanovich on court in 1977. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
So, I mean, I'm familiar with it from you and I having talked about it. And for the people that
Sure.
aren't, they should look it up on YouTube, right?
Yes. Just look up The Punch featuring Kermit Washington.
Right.
And so he went through he got the NBA came down on him hard back then, and so he spent a lot of time trying to redeem his reputation, and so he actually started a charity in the 80s. And fast forward to I think 2015 is when I got involved in the investigation, and he got wrapped up into an investigation with Homeland Security where we ended up uncovering four different fraud schemes that he was running through the charity and then stealing all the money, embezzling all the money from the charity. And it's a really exciting case. It's charity fraud and lots of twists and turns. And it's one that I present on a lot to attorney groups, just again because it's pretty entertaining. So I'm writing the story of my investigation of him. So it will feature, a lot of the case information, but it's really going to focus on kind of my relationship that I've made with the U.S. Attorney's Office and Homeland Security in working that case and what a huge success it was at the end.
When's the book expected to be out?
We'll see.
But you are
I'm
working
writing
with
it
the
right
publisher.
now.
Are they kind of coaching you through the process? I mean,
Yes.
how deep into the process are you?
I hope to have this done within 3 months and
Wow.
up. Yeah. But I don't have a name for it yet, so you'll have to check back for that.
I'll have to come up with some cool.
Yeah, but I'm excited. I'm excited to share the story, and my hope ultimately is that somebody will make a movie at it, and I can get Jessica Chastain to play me.
Good call. Good choice.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
we'll see.
Well, good luck with that. So, I don't know, at this point, I think I'm going to wrap up and hit the stop button, but we could keep hanging out for a couple minutes if you want.
Sure, sure.